go flying up this hill. I hit this ledge at the top, and boom, it lifts up like this, and the whole thing jumps off the ground, slams back down, and all of a sudden I hear from the bottom of the hill, "Stop! Stop!" So nowadays I'm an avid off-roader slash rock crawler, but it wasn't always that way. I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's just like Atlanta, it's a concrete jungle. There's not a lot of places to go four-wheeling. But when I turned 16, my grandpa and my dad had given me a little bit of money. And I wanted, for whatever reason, I have no idea why, I wanted either a Jeep Cherokee or a Bronco 2. I really wanted a K5 Blazer, but with the money that I was allotted, it was out of question. So I ended up settling on this Jeep Cherokee, 1988 Jeep Cherokee that I bought from a fireman in Dallas. And it was only 10 years old, but for whatever reason, it had been not taken care of. So I picked this thing up, and as a 16-year-old kid, it was already lifted, kind of had bigger tires on it, and I thought I was going to be the cool kid at school, you know? Turns out all the other kids didn't think I was that cool. But there was this place that wasn't quite legal that we would go off-roading. At the time, I didn't know any better. I was just a kid. It was on the other side of town over by the airport, so this would have been DFW Airport. I was out there wheeling one day. I had taken my friend, my best friend, and his girlfriend at the time. My best friend's in the passenger seat. His girlfriend is in the back seat. And it's nighttime after school, and we're out there at this place. They used to call it 360. I think it's still there today, but don't go there. It's got mostly homes on it now. But we're out there, and it's just the Wild West, right? Because this is not a place where you pay to go off-roading. This is not public land. It's just like no man's land. To get there, you had to cross these railroad tracks. You had to like pull off on the side of the highway, climb this hill, off the interstate highway, mind you, climb this hill, go over some railroad tracks, hope that you didn't get stuck on them before the Amtrak train came by. And you get down in there, and there's like this river that everybody would kind of gather at and party. So we're down there this night, and for whatever reason, we're the only people down there at the river. We're just goofing around. There's this big hill right there. It's probably 30, 40 feet tall, like steep hill with this like 1 foot ledge at the top. This guy comes in I think it was a Toyota FJ40. He comes and he's like, "Hey man, I think you got that." And I'm like, "I don't know. I was new to this. This was like the first 6 months I had had a car, let alone done any off-roading." And he's like, "No man, you got that." So he kind of pressured me into it. This guy was probably twice my age. And I was like, "You think so?" "Yeah, man, you got that." And I was like, "All right, let's do it." So I get over to this hill, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just put my foot to the floor, go flying up this hill. I hit this ledge at the top, and boom, it lifts up like this, and the whole thing jumps off the ground, slams back down, and all of a sudden I hear from the bottom of the hill, "Stop! Stop!" So I hit the brakes, and I look out, and my rear axle's missing. I'm like, "Oh no, what happened?" So I put it in park. My friend and I get out. We're looking at this thing. The axle is like underneath the Jeep. Like the Jeep's facing this way, but the axle is this way. And I'm asking the guy, I don't know. I said, what happened? He's like, "Oh man, if I knew you had aluminum blocks under that thing, aluminum lift blocks, I'd have never told you to go up that hill." I was like, "Oh, now you tell me." So aluminum lift blocks are like what lifts the vehicle in the back when you have leaf springs. And aluminum blocks are like the thing you get at AutoZone if you want to be cool around town. But you don't go off-road with these things, right? I didn't know that at the time. The axle is sideways under there, and I'm thinking like, I don't know what to do. And the guy's like, "I don't know either, man." And he kind of takes off. We're looking at this thing, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these Jeeps just start coming out of the woods. Just Jeep comes out of the woods, other Jeep comes out of the woods, and they're like, hey man, you need any help? I'm like, yeah, I don't know what to do. And they come over there and they're like MacGyvers. Back in the day, there was this show called MacGyver, and he could fix anything with some duct tape and bubble gum, right? So they come out of the woodwork like MacGyvers, and they're underneath there and they're wrenching on things and they're passing tools around. And the guy yells out, he's like, hey, do you have a block of wood? And I was like, you know what? I do have some 2x4s in the back of my Jeep. I kept them in there. I had this toolkit. I kept some 2x4s in there for whatever reason. He's like, that'll be perfect. We couldn't tighten the U-bolts down because they were meant for the lift blocks, so they didn't have enough thread on them. So we had to put in a spacer for where these aluminum lift blocks used to be, but they're long gone, broken in half. These MacGyver guys, they asked me if I had this wood, and we took these 2x4s and we put them underneath the leaf spring in between the axle and sandwiched them in the U-bolts. And that was the spacer. Instead of the aluminum block, I had this wooden block. So we get all that tightened down. The whole time, mind you, my friend's girlfriend, when these people started coming out of the woods, we're like, oh no, this is like that movie where people come out of the woods, like The Hills Have Eyes, they're coming down. So while they were coming down, I told her, I said, get down on the floorboard of the Jeep in the back and lay down, put this blanket over you so that nobody knows you're back there. Because we didn't know these guys, it's just rednecks in the woods. So the whole time that they're fixing on this, they have no idea there's this girl, this 16-year-old girl, in the back of this Jeep laying on the floorboard. So she's back there not making any noise, being real quiet, and we're under the Jeep, we're fixing things up, and they get the axle pulled back. There's like winches on this side, winches on this side, winch on the front. They had to put a winch on the front so they could winch the axle back under the Jeep, get it in place, tighten down the U-bolts with these wooden blocks underneath. I get that put back together, and he's like, hey man, your rear drive shaft's broke, because when the axle went like this, the drive shaft was just gone. He's like, but you've got four-wheel drive. What you're going to do is you're going to put your Jeep in four-wheel drive, but it's only going to be front-wheel drive, and you're going to drive home in four-wheel drive. You got it? And I was like, yeah, I think that'll work. We get back down off of this hill, winch down off this hill, and these guys are like, all right, man, you got this. All of a sudden, you hear this squeak from the back, and they're like, who's in there? And then, oh, don't worry about it, man. What ends up happening is they lead us back out to the highway. I drive this Jeep back probably 20 or 30 miles in four-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, on the highway, going 60, 65 miles an hour with no rear drive shaft. The front-wheel drive's pulling, and managed to make it back to the house. Mind you, this is like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning that we finally get back. We had all told each of our parents that we were spending the night with our friends, right? So there was this conversion van that my dad had given me to sell before he moved off to Arkansas. So this conversion van was sitting in front of my house. I'm like, I got an idea. Instead of going back and telling our parents like what we did, that we snuck out and we're lying and all this stuff, we'll just sleep in the conversion van all night, come out in the morning and pretend like nothing ever happened. So we slept in that conversion van that night. Our parents never found out. And that is how I got into Jeeping. Like the Jeep community, if you don't know, now they do the duck thing, which is really weird. But they're a really great group of people. If you're ever stuck, if you ever break down, they come together and they help you out. One of the great things about this story is that girl, that 16-year-old girl that was in the back, I ended up marrying her years later. And that is my high school sweetheart. We're still married to this day. We've been together for 24 years. That's my story of how I got into Jeeping.
I start most of my days browsing Auto Tempest for my next bad decision of a car, but did you know that supporting Auto Tempest can also help support all the great content that they support in the automotive YouTube world? I know that you've probably enjoyed a lot of videos that they supported and a lot of channels that they've been sponsoring for years, perhaps without even knowing it. So check them out now at the link in the description below. It is the most powerful way to shop for your next car because you'll see all the listings showing up in one search, and you can search by any criteria that you want, but it also helps make automotive YouTube a much better place. So check them out now, autotempest.com, all the cars, one search.